Absolutely. And I think it's a really important point that you touched on, which is when Pat went about founding this company, and I just think his story is interesting in and of itself, because he was a professor, like he was a biochemist at Stanford. So he had kind of already achieved this, climbing Mount Everest of academia. He'd already done that. And he moved over into food manufacturing, into food science and food tech, despite having no prior interest in food manufacturing or food tech whatsoever beforehand. It really was a means to an end for him. So his entire goal set is around how do we halt or reverse climate change, and how do we preserve biodiversity? And that's the same for me. I really am motivated by biodiversity and saving natural landscapes. It's very much a means to an end. And so when he founded the company, he really kind of took this look at consumer trends. And he was thinking to himself, what's the most effective way that I can address these big wicked problems that UN SDGs are constructed around? And the answer was private sector. It's unlocking kind of consumer agency, but not, and this is the key, not relying on consumer awareness or consumer actions necessarily to be oriented to sustainability. So food choice is tricky. Food is hard. Food is culture, right? And so when you're choosing food as an individual, you're choosing it based on your immediate need set. And usually that's things around taste, price, availability and accessibility, to some extent health. Sustainability, climate impact tends to be kind of a tertiary factor, if it's there at all for most consumers, not all. And even if you are motivated, it's tough to find something where you don't have to compromise. And I'm a perfect example of this. Until like Oatly rolled into the shelves, I was using, normal dairy milk because I couldn't get something that emulsified in my coffee. So all this being said, Pat's focus was, let's give them the same thing that they have grown up with, that they love, that provides this critical nutritional profile that's versatile, but let's do it at a much lower footprint, because there's a huge abundance of plant-based proteins, plant-based oils and fats, plant-based functional carbohydrates on this planet, a massive diversity of this. There's got to be ways to take the constituents of those plants and assemble them in a way that mimics the same experience, but you don't go through that animal metabolism. And as a result, you can be much more resource efficient. In fact, the Impossible Burger, which is our flagship product, although we also have sausage out now, the burger requires 96% less water, generates 89% lower emissions, and uses about 87% less water compared to conventional beef. So to get to that phase, to get to this point where we have something that we can commercialize and really take carnivores as our market base, we had to invest a tremendous amount of time into the research and development to basically reverse engineer meat. What makes it delicious? What makes it cook the way that it does? What makes it smell the way that it does? A huge amount of work went into figuring out those things, which had kind of been unexplored territory to some extent. Not many folks were out there trying to recreate this from plants. And so one of the key discoveries very early was, they had this theory that heme, which is a small iron carrying molecule found in all living organisms, but it's in very high abundance in red meat. Their theory was that this molecule is going to be really important for creating that consumer experience. And it turns out it is. And so that was the big IP breakthrough of the company, was figuring out how to create heme from plants and incorporate that into our recipe, so that when you get an Impossible Burger, when you get in a product, it behaves, cooks, has the same nutritional characteristics as the thing that we're intending you to substitute it for, the version from an animal. And so, yeah, lots of R&D work up front, but then in terms of manufacturing, we're basically squishing plant proteins and fats together in paddle mixers and assembling that.